I would probably think that, you know, if we were to make any recommendation to council, it would be, you know, to split that up and say, you know, depending on how everybody feels about the zero lot line, you know, that most of their units are already at zero already. It's just that there's just a few other ones that aren't. And so if Lorenzo's okay with the zero lot line on the waterfront, all the way around on the water, and this committee is okay with it, then that's what I would recommend. But any other questions?
Sure. The other comment, something we talked about on site is the need for a contingency plan for response. As we discovered that if the railroad is occupied or stopped, we're limited on our response time. So that triggered and pulled the lever for me on exactly what that's going to look like if we continue to build on the site bigger. So that's going to be part of our hazard risk vulnerability analysis in the near future. But that's something I would like to take into consideration also.
Okay, good point. Nicole, is there something that we could add to this? Or do you want to table it for a bit and work on it?
Well, I think I should approach Brett Palmer and let him know the results of this discussion. And then I agree about the response plan that's needed. I don't know if that has, if we would hold this up, like if we're comfortable with the 0 meter setback, and wait for that kind of plan to come into place, because it sounds like that plan will actually take some time to make. That would be my approach. Is let's maybe ask the applicant to amend their application to remove the 0.7 meters, include the 0 meter. And then in the background, we're working on this response plan for not just this development, but anyone on that side of the tracks off Silver Sands Road.
Okay, thank you. Deb, do you have something there?
Nope, all good.
Looks like your hand's up. That's not your hand. Okay,
yeah, just one other question, just about the 0 lot line. I mean, those lots as, because I mean, this is just kind of a weird property. Like I haven't seen a property boundary that includes water. It looks like it includes half of the lagoon as well. So we do like, so each one of those that are there, those are the fixed lots. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I guess we would consider those the wrecked vehicle spaces.
Right. Okay. Because we went from a 0 lot line, then you're into the lake on some of this stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, the 0. If you go back one slide. Yeah, there we go. Right. Would be from that red line.
From that. Okay.
And then of course, yeah, around.
And then I guess so. We're just talking about that side, but the other side is waterfront too.
Yeah, so it's not just that side. It would be
it's all
the rear from all of the lots, and so some of the lots aren't on the map there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to be clear what. So
yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay with that, but the only caveat I have with that is if it's going to make it more dense than what it already is, I think that's my general concern. I went over and I've taken a look and walked by. It's an extremely dense site with a lot of stuff going on, and I know we're trying to make that transition a little easier over time, but we don't want to have even more stuff on that site. So if it's longer trailers and all these things, then that's a bit of a concern because that'll just pack the site even more. But I think we could probably deal with that issue when we come to our siting permits, and those concerns could be probably taken care of through that. Would that be correct?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I would love to see that with siting permits, which is still on our radar. We just had some other bigger files coming through. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, but then I think the 0 could work, because then we'll have an extra layer to make sure that things aren't going in the wrong direction, for lack of a better word.
Thanks, Ian. And then one thing we got to recognize too is that, I mean, right now it's actually summer use only, and resort is summer use only. But they one day might come to us and say we're going to put in deep services, and now they want to be year round, and that causes more problems with snow removal and stuff like that. So okay. So going forward, Nicole, are you comfortable with what that recommendation is?
Yep.
and amend it to remove the 0.7?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
We have a motion. Ian, seconder John. All those in favor? Barry? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, item B. 24-131 DVP 1383 Silver Sands Road. Recommend that the Planning Development Committee provide direction for the proposed development permit and development variance permit for the property located at number 1383 Silver Sands Road. Can I have a mover? John, seconder. Ian, okay. And let's have a little, I guess you'll give us an update on that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this property is located at 1383 Silver Sands Road. It's just outlined in yellow there. And so it's currently designated residential waterfront medium density under the OCP. And zoned, oh, okay, I'll skip, I went to skip the floodplain, but it is in the floodplain. And then under the water course development permit area. And it is currently zoned RVP1, recreational vehicle park. So this proposal is a little bit unique. It came to us, if you read the staff report, through a stop work order from the building department. They were on site doing some inspections with some other units in this development and noticed that a deck was being constructed without a permit, and it was going to trigger the building permit requirement. It wasn't small enough to not avoid that process. And so now we have the application in front of us. It sounds like the variance is going to be required for setbacks because if you can see in the yellow there, it's going almost to the property line. And okay, so there's a couple things here. And what we're going to talk about is if this deck was attached to the building and what those setbacks would be as the principal building. And then if it's not attached to the building and what the setbacks would be because that's an accessory. So if it's attached, it's part of the principal. And if it's not attached, it's an accessory. And then we also have the piece where we've talked about it before, especially with citing permits, is if this is attached, then we're going to need, the building department's going to need some type of engineering report saying that this is okay because the deck is coming after the building has been placed and they weren't constructed together. So two different things we're going to review. So if it is attached, then the setbacks that we're looking for are front setback from 4.5 meters to 3.35 meters. And that front setback is the interior strata road. And then the side setback between the individual lots, we're looking from 1 meters to 0.2 meters. So it's quite a, I guess, relaxation. And then June, maybe you could chip in about the number 3 there about the subsection regulation. You might need the mic.
Can I, can I just interrupt for just a sec?
Yeah.
You're talking about a deck. Are we not talking about just a canopy, an awning, like a carport, I guess you want to call it, or are we talking a deck? Because can you?
June, is it deck or awning?
Through the chair, I believe it's awning.
Yeah.
Carport alike.
So decks exist. Okay, sorry.
The concrete pad already existed.
Yeah.
So he ended up putting a deck over, like an awning over top of a carport, I guess you want to call it.
Carport.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to confirm.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. I was using the wrong term there.
Yeah, no worries.
And then, sorry, June, to cut back into number 3, can you just explain what the subsection reg requires?
Yep, through the chair. So that subsection 11B2 talks about whether the accessory structure needs to be structurally independent from the primary structure or not. So if we were to provide that, if we were to consider the provision of the variance, then the subsection that was referenced there also needs to be varied to allow the proponent to attach the proposed new awning to the existing mobile home park model.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. So thanks for the reminder. In the zoning for RVP 1, it says that decks must be independent. That's something that was in there.
Now that's decks, not awnings, or both?
Through the chair, it would read that any accessory structures located within the subject property would need to be structurally independent to the existing primary building structure.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And then in the next slide, the awning is structurally independent, then the variance that we're looking for is the side setback from 1.5 meters to 0.2 meters.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, if you go back, right now, I know we have the applicant on the line. June, do you know, is it proposed to be attached or detached?
Through the chair, based on the conversation with the proponent, my understanding is that it will be proposed as attached to the existing house.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so then we're looking at the 3 types of variances.
Okay.
You go ahead, 2 slides. Okay, so then we'll obviously have a chat about what this looks like, and then with your comments, we can further review a variance. And then the other piece that we haven't quite touched on is this is also within the watercourse development permit area. So definitely within the 30 meters, maybe within the 15 meters. And so technically would trigger those riparian assessment requirements.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, well, we do have the proponent online. Kelly, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I would. I was listening to the last thing. There's no dirt being moved there. It's for the. I mean, it's all on a lot. I don't know what it would trigger as far as anything else goes. It is a awning. There's only 4 posts and the part of the roof that would be close to the variance we're asking for. We did discuss whether we should have it attached or unattached, depending, because it changes the variance width. Either way, it still needs, if it was attached, it would just be it still have structural integrity through a second beam to be put in there. So, and I'm not sure what my drawings I had and the setback that is being asked for. I think you guys had 0.02 meters.
Is it 0.2?
Yep.
June? Okay, 0.2 meters.
0.2 meters.
That's what you asked for, I think.
Well, it's just under a foot, or just over half a foot there is what we asked for. So that's not 0.0 or 0.2 meters. 0.2 meters is I guess that's just over 0.66. Okay.
Okay.
Just making sure that I was right on that number there. So.
Okay, and then Kelly, did you provided you had neighboring approvals, or did you have strata approval?
Yeah, so I did get strata approval. Strata approval did approve it being built close to property line. I did contact neighbors on both sides. I don't know if I'm within 50, but anybody like across the road and on both sides of the lot, there's no problem. The lot directly associated, their park model is quite a ways away from that. I mean, I think it's over a meter away from the posts that would be there. There is room access in between both units there if needed. And as far as engineering goes, it would be engineered as for snow load and to be either structure. It can't be structurally attached to the park model as is. It would need a second beam in place to be structurally attached. The attachment would be for the lateral support, basically. And if it aids with the variance.
Okay, okay,
I have a question.
okay, go ahead, Darian.
Well, so you're talking about just the snow load, but if you're 0.2 meters, where would the snow go? If it's sliding off the roof?
It's from the property line. It's probably not going to slide off that roof at the angle it's at. It's
Okay.
a fairly flat roof. So and
Okay.
there's plenty of distance between both lots for any snowfall if there was anything to slide off to go.
Okay, so Nicole, are we worried about, we're not worried about, QEP, reports and stuff like that? Or are we?
That's interesting. Yeah, that was a good point that the awning doesn't disturb the ground. I think we should just take a look at our exemptions for that.
Okay. Right, do you want us to carry on and vote on this, or do you want to do some more homework on it?
Yeah, it sounds like there might be a discrepancy between the variance that's being requested, the 0.02, which I think is based on the drawings that we received, but there could be, I mean, it's a pretty minimal variance, but it does make a big difference when you're talking about interior setbacks from other people's properties. So yeah, we can go back and revisit.
Okay.
Well, okay, so what is the setback we're being asked for? I mean, it's far less than the meter, correct?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I guess in these drawings, it's showing at 0.2.
Oh.
And then, as Kelly just mentioned, he's thinking it's more 0.6.
No,
Okay,
no, it's a 0.2 when I did calculation.
It is.
so it's 0.2.
It's just over half a foot, yeah.
And then I guess my next question is the structure already built?
The structure is I guess 90% complete.
Pretty much built.
Yeah.
The roof's almost on. There's only 1 or 2 sheets left to go. Go ahead.
The stop work order is still in place.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so do we need to worry about any of the other recommendations, like you were saying, the repairing area stuff, or do we move?
Well, like I said, I'm gonna go back and revisit,
Okay.
because it was mentioned, yes, the awning isn't disturbing any of the ground. Just want to double check the exemptions. And then if we go back to the 3 variances, because it is attached, these are the variances that we would be looking at.
4.5 to 3.5, yeah. Side setback 1.0 to 0.2.
Yeah, so at the very least, Mr. Chair, it probably has to go to council, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So should we just discuss how we feel about this now, or you want to have it come back to council or come back to us? I don't.
No, you can discuss right now, and we can move it forward to council. We might not have enough to come back there.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is my problem is I think one, we need to send a letter to the strata. I'm sorry that the strata told you that this will be okay, but we've had lengthy discussions with the strata about these 1 meter side setbacks. It's been something we worked for months on, and I'm happy to go and talk to the strata myself because we've been talking to them pretty clearly about these issues, right? So I don't know why they would have said it's okay to build the structure in the first place. Second, we just changed this zoning and we had long discussions about these 1 meter setbacks and why we have to do that. So I'm not inclined. There's no way that you get a 0.2 meter setback, in my opinion. We just actually had a previous discussion where we don't want to go to 0.7. So, I mean, this is a little frustrating for me because we have worked really hard to try to get to something that is even outside of our normal zoning. And trying to do something that over time would help these parks transition to something a little more reasonable. But we can't go from from my opinion, from 1 meter to 0.2 and say that's okay. When we're saying no to everybody else on this. So I'm not in support of this. And the other thing is, I do think we need to follow up with the strata and say, please do not tell people this. Please, it's not okay to build a structure. The other thing is, if there's a heavy snow year and that snow is not going to slide off the roof, I mean, snow just can't accumulate there a year and then nowhere to slide either. So I'd have some concern about that. I haven't seen the site, happy to go by, but that 1 meter at some point, I know it's tough. I know people want to build out the entire lot, but it's there for a reason. It's there for fire safety reasons. We got a compromise from the previous chief from 1.5 meters to 1 meter. I think that has to be where it's at. So that's just how I feel.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Go ahead. Or is that Deb, are you next?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, so just a couple of questions and points. So I'm not seeing the slides moving. I've got the original 24-131 DVP on my screen, and that hasn't moved. So something needs to be done there. So I haven't seen some of what you guys have seen, but I guess, if I'm understanding correctly, you've got a concrete pad that's already there. Oh, perfect. In terms of what's in place on the flooring end of it. So when we talk about an awning, I get a little confused, because when I think of an awning, I think of something as a very temporary kind of, like shade, pull out, pull back kind of idea. If this is a permanent structure, my inclination is to agree with Ian, because I've said to you guys before, I've been down this road in terms of, you have people building permanent structures and they say, okay, it's, it'll handle snow load. And then suddenly walls miraculously appear around it. And I'm not saying that the proponent would do this, but suddenly they get turned into sunrooms. And then suddenly it's like, oh, the grandkids are sleeping in there because they came out with their sleds. And, a permanent roof over, I don't call that an awning. And I think it should be held to a different standard than, what we're talking about here. And certainly in terms of the structure and setbacks and such, we have to, I think, be firm on that.
Okay, thanks, Deb. I think what you're saying, it is actually a carport. I guess you'd probably want to call it a carport more than an awning, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Kelly, you had something, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm a little frustrated. So just to clarify, that Strata didn't give permission before. It was after the stop work order that when I talked to the building inspector, he indicated that part of the process to move forward with this was to get approval from the Strata to continue. So that's the letter I got from them. It was that basically that they gave me the okay. It's not like I asked to start with, and then they said yes. They said it was okay as is. The other part that's frustrating is that 90% of and I was told not to speak to this, but as it obviously needs to be spoken to, is that 90% of the places in the park already have an existing structure that's exactly the same. I submitted pictures of several of them in the park that are built exactly the same. This is probably the only one that will be built with the appropriate snow load and appropriate permitting. There was not another one in there that was built with permitting.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
That's the frustrating part.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Go ahead, Derry.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to address that, and I'm sorry, but there was some, I don't know if you know the history of it, but about 5, 6, 7, 8 months of this, we have worked to adapt kind of the zoning specifically for Silver Sands, and that zoning was passed was it a month ago, 6 weeks ago or something, And now those are the rules going forward. We're well aware of the issues that are happening at Silver Sands. They're not ones that the district can allow to go forward. So yeah, the rules are changing for new structures going forward. And obviously this is one. I'm just not sure how we got to the point of where you understood that this would be allowed, right? And because, like I said, we developed these rules in conjunction with the strata, and the strata knows full well. And actually, the strata supported those new rules. Like Terry fully supported it, and others, and your site manager also did after a long period. So the district has been working, I think, really cooperatively with the strata, and we've done that in a spirit of harmony and try to get to a good resolution that satisfies our fire requirements for the site. So this is where we landed, and the 1 meter setback, I can just tell you, it's a little bit contentious even in our, the fire department would like larger. And then obviously the strata would like less. So we had a compromise there, and it came down to that 1 meter. And so that's what we're talking about here, and that's how I feel like that 1 meter has to be adhered to, even though we know there's non-conforming structures in that site, and those have been grandfathered, for lack of a better word. But going forward, the rules around the setbacks and everything else is expected to be adhered to.
Yeah, normally we try to get out and have a look at each of the sites before they come to the committee, but unfortunately we didn't this time. And it would be good if we did get out to the site and have a look at it, because there is a little bit of a, there were, a little bit of confusion on whether it was an awning or a carport and things like that. So, I mean, I'm willing to pop over and have a look. And I know, Nicole, you probably got some more homework to do on the repairing stuff. If you want to hold off just for till the next meeting, and we'll come back with a full report. Would that be okay, Nicole?
Through the chair. So I guess you're suggesting maybe should I set up some type of field visit, or does the committee want to go on their own and take a peek? And then in the meantime, I'm also reviewing the riparian setback requirements.
Well, I would like to have the strata there for sure, because like Ian said, we did spend 6 months working with the strata and talking about setbacks, and we relaxed the setback to 1 meter, and we found ourselves in this position again. So it would be good if to have a site tour and try to get this sorted out with the strata, so that that we moving forward, we don't have these come to us like this again.
Yep, through the chair. I can set that up with Terry.
Okay, yeah. And Kelly, I'm not sure if you're going to be, if you're around, if you could want to attend, you'd be more than welcome to attend.
Well, with some notice, I'd like to be able to attend. 2, Terry is not on the strata board, so he's not the one to contact. And 3, this was up in place long before the last regulations were completed. It wasn't done after the new regulations came in. It was completed prior to the new regulations coming in. So it's really grandfather in the same as every other one grandfathered in.
Well, I mean, it puts us in a bad position where we're at right now, because it's in, and so we did walk through the park with Milo, and we did walk through the park with Terry at the same time, and we discussed all this. So, I just think it would be a lot easier if we actually went through it one more time with the strata. And if you're more than welcome to join us, and we could have, maybe we could have Dyson there as well, and our planning department.
Yeah, I just need some notice. They gave me less than half a day's notice of this meeting.
Okay, yeah, we can give you notice. Yeah. Okay. Kelly, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, just real quick, and just for clarity, the previous setbacks were actually 1.5 meters. So they were actually greater than the 1 meter. It's the old one before that was a little different, but the 1.5 meters been in place since, I guess, the beginning of 2023. And with the new zone now, it's reduced to the 1 meter. Just for clarity in terms of process, so as our planning and development committee meetings are once a month, is the planning and development committee fine with us, you know, after your meeting forwarding this just to a regular council meeting? Or is there an appetite for this to come back to the planning and development committee?
No, I think it could go to a council meeting, but in the meantime, we still, you know, we could still do our homework, and that way we'll be able to present to the rest of the council what our findings are.
Okay.
That works for administration. Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, sorry. Well, since we have our building inspector here, could you maybe come and give us a little bit more information? Because you're the one who, well, I assume you're the one who put the stop work order on. So maybe you can, yeah, maybe you.
Information would you like to know?
Well, explain, you know, why and how, and I assume there was no application for this structure.
So we had gone through, we had another inspection at the park, and we have noticed throughout Silver Sands that there's lots of different structures that haven't gone through the permitting process, and we took a drive. We were just leaving site and saw that there was a brand new structure. It was under construction. We checked to make sure to see if there was an application, and there wasn't one. And so that's when we went and issued the stop work order. So yeah, as far as setbacks goes, attaching to the park model itself, using graded lumber is something that is needed. It's requires engineering. So yeah, there was a few things that we noted that yeah, it definitely needed a permit, and it requires engineering as well.
And is this is a permanent structure, not an awning? It's a permanent structure. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, there's, as far as the angle, I think you bring up a good point that yeah, snow would definitely be going from, you know, would be offloading onto the next property. So it's just, yeah, it's a theme that we see out there. It, you know, people want to build right out to the line, and I know that's been common practice, and it's unfortunate for Kelly that, you know, it's this structure, you know, that it sort of lands on him. So I understand the frustration, but at some point we have to enforce both the BC building code and our district bylaws. So
okay, that's good. Thanks very much.
yeah, absolutely.
Ian, do you have one more for him?
Yeah, well, it's either for you or anybody really. So we do have, well, the district does have liability when so, well, maybe we don't. So maybe I should ask that question. You know, in terms of this, what does our liability look like when we kind of allow, or, you know, these types of structures to go forward? Does this conform with BC building code? I mean, we have to follow that. We're mandated to follow that. We can't really pick and choose.
Throughout the district, we need to establish the same rules for the people living in the subdivision as living at Silver Sands. So there's a process for carports, and there's a process for all construction, and it needs to meet the BC building code no matter where you fall in the district. So yeah, this is definitely a permanent structure that needs to be inspected, and it needs to be pre-planned, and it needs to ensure that it meets all the governing bylaws and provincial standards. So
okay, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Okay, Nicole, so we're good setting up a quick ops. We'll see if we can get Terry and Milo together again, or the strata.
Milo doesn't live in the strata anymore, and both of those people are not part of the strata. They're not part of the strata. They're not part of the board, the council.
They do speak on behalf of the strata because we've been dealing with them for the last year, actually, Kelly. So,
I'm on the council.
Okay,
I know who is part of it. Milo does not live in there anymore. Milo has moved to Alberta.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
And
so you're on the strata now, and you're representing the strata, or should we?
There is a strata council. I don't personally represent the council, but I am currently on the Strata Council. So I
Okay.
know that, and Terry is an owner there. Terry is not part of the council. He was okay to speak on our behalf, but he's not on actual council. So anything that goes through has to go through the actual Strata Council, not Terry.
Okay, well, we'll set that up with the strata and we'll move forward that way. And like, by all means, Nicole, if you want to add it to the next agenda, and hopefully we can sit down and go through this before the next agenda. Ian?
Yeah, I just want to know, so is it coming to the May 22nd council meeting? Is that, no, it'll be after. So I just want to know how much time we have in between to go out and visit. So yeah, it will have like 3 weeks or something, right? It'll be probably the June. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Kelly, we'll give you some notice and we'll touch base with the strata as well. And you have a contact you could pass on to Nicole or June for strata president?
Well, I would have to go through Brian through our staff Strata management company.
Okay, that's great. That'll work. Okay. All right, so we'll instead of putting this forward to council, or do you want to put this forward? No, we'll
Well, can I make a suggestion?
sure.
I think Kelly and Nicole indicated that it's not going to go to the next May 22nd council. It would be there after, and I think that would be fine. Myself, like, we might as well just bring it, before, and then we have 3 weeks to go and maybe chat with the committee could go chat with the council or over to see the structure. So I think that would give us enough time, but still put it towards council because it'll have to ultimately go there anyways.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a seconder. Okay.
I'll motion it. Yeah.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay.
Sorry, can you just repeat? What's the motion? What is being voted on?
Yeah, what is the motion?
So the motion is to send it to.
Support the variance or to send it to?
I think I would personally.
Normally the motions are either you support it or you don't, or because we would always proceed to council regardless.
Yeah.
Right?
So we need to amend the no.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can also send it to council without a recommendation.
Yeah, exactly.
I've spoke how I felt. I'm fine either way. I'm also fine to send it to council without a recommendation, but I mean, from my own personal opinion, is that we've worked hard and it doesn't comply. And I am determined to make sure those 1 meter setbacks are there. And my own opinion is that I don't feel like this is going to get a lot of traction, because even at council, because we've gone through some of the fire safety issues and we've talked to now 2 fire chiefs on this issue, and they've been pretty clear. And there's issues around if there's a fire in these locations, how they can fight it and get between structures. So if it comes to I mean, I'm happy to talk to. I want to close the door hard. So maybe what I'll do is make a motion to send it to council without a recommendation. Then we have 3 weeks, and we'll talk about it at council anyways again.
Okay.
That sounds good. And just for clarity, it will be a variance. So whatever we decide, we'll have to go through a notification process too.
Have to go through a public hearing?
No, but we need to send notifications to the temporary properties within 50 meters, and it's normally what, 10 days? At least
10 days.
At least 10 days. So there will be some timing whenever.
So it'll be.
Whatever the variance is, there will be some notification requirements before it can come to council. That's all.
So.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So it'll be June, but maybe late June, depending on what you guys have to do in terms of notification. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so that motion is to bring it to council. Yeah.
With no recommendation, but I don't know. It's a will of the committee.
Okay, that's good. All those in favor again? Carried. Okay, thank you, Kelly. We'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. District Community Plan Bylaw Amendment number 1074, 2024 zoning bylaw amendment number 1075, 2024, and DP and DVP 329 Main Street. Okay, we have 3 recommendations. Maybe I'll get Nicole to give us a little update, and then we'll read those because we've got 3 different individual recommendations.
Okay, here. So they were looking at 329 Main Street. Currently, at the, I guess, north end of the property, it's the gift store. So commercial operation, and then the back end of the property is undeveloped. And the back end of the property abuts Fred Bush Lane in the south and Shuswap Avenue. So right now, the property is designated town center, the entire property. And it is currently zoned C1, local and town center commercial, the entire property. Thank you. So we have a number of things going on here. So the applicant ideally would like to subdivide the lot, so break off the existing commercial development and have it as its own lot, and then develop the empty lot as a residence. And so in order to do that, we're looking at an OCP amendment for the residential area and a zoning amendment. And then they would need the development permit and some variances that are being proposed in that development. So just a quick note on the subdivision, this is what it would look like. So got a buffer from behind the commercial area and then the empty residential lot there. I can't quite see the lot sizes, but it looks like the empty lot is 496.3 meters squared. And that's proposed, that's the area that's proposed to be rezoned to R1 for the residential use. Okay, so then for the OCP and zoning, so lot 1 obviously has the existing commercial use, and so no OCP or zoning amendment is required for that. But then for the bare lot, we're looking at changing the OCP and zoning to support the residents. Sorry, I should have some better eyesight. But so the back end of the property is supposed to go from C1 to R1, which we'll talk a little bit later today in housing, because R1 is proposed to be changed, but that's the plan right now. And then for the DP and the DB, so we're in the town center development permit area, so they would require a variance to the, I think we're calling it the front setback along Shuswap. June, do you know the proposed variance offhand? It's to 0. Oh, thank you. Go for it.
Okay, through the chair, as the image prepared indicates, development variance will be required to address the relaxation of the both front and rear setback. Front is proposed to be relaxed from required 6 meters to 3.59 meters, and then rear to 5 meters to 2.19 meters. Sorry.
One more ahead. There we go. And so that's why we have 3 recommendations today. If this proposal goes through as they would like, we would need to do an OCP amendment for the back end, the zoning amendment also for the back end, not touching that existing commercial piece, and then they would need a development permit and a variance for those setbacks. So, I mean, we can discuss before we look at the recommendations, but open to hearing, what you think about this proposal.
Okay, then maybe we should open the discussion before we read all the recommendations. There's 3 different recommendations. Okay, I'll open up the floor. Anybody have any comments? John, go ahead.
The only really concern I have mainly with reducing the setbacks along Shuswap Ave is because we have sidewalk on the other side, is during the winter, they actually do push all the snow to the west side of the road. Not sure how close the building is actually coming to that setback and whatnot. It's kind of hard to tell on the picture, to be honest with you. But I think Public Works might have to chime in on our snow removal during that area, because and locations to their entrance to the property, would that be off of Shuswap or off of Redbush Lane? Do we know on that one?
Nicole?
And sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, the question I have is entrance to the property, the rear one, because it's surrounded by Redbush Lane, right? Or sorry, by the other lot, so you wouldn't be getting access off Redbush, so you have to get access off of Shuswap. And then snow removal is just gonna be a very big issue, in my opinion, because we have sidewalk on one side. That's why they keep one side not sidewalked, is for snow removal. So I think, well, there's the guy right there. So, yeah.
No, that's good.
It might be a question for Daryl on that one.
Yeah, sorry, I was upstairs trying to raise my hand on.
Oh,
Sorry. Well,
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is monolithic sidewalk on the one side, everything goes to the other side. It's just, it ties our hands.
yeah, that was my only concern really with that one.
okay, go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, through the chair. Okay, so then if we look at the front, this is under the R1 zone, because that's what they would have to go to. The requirement is 6 meters, and then they're proposing the 3.59, and I think what everyone is saying is that the 3.59 meter setback isn't quite enough for snow storage.
Okay, and also another question is that, do we know from the lot line out to the street how wide that is as well? Because there is a big, there's even a transformer, I think there's a transformer in there. So there is a, just, I'm not sure, maybe Gavin, I'm not sure if you can, we have the proponent in the galley here. How much room is from your house to the curb? We're talking about the side setback along Shuswap.
Yeah. The utility right of way is 3 meters, I believe.
So there's 3.
And then the setback to the house is, I think it's another 2 meters. So it's about 5 meters. Hang on. A little bit more. I think it's about 20 feet in total from the curb to the house, the proposed house.
Okay.
The first 3 meters are actually utility right of way.
Yeah, 3 meters of the utility right away.
Yeah, so basically the idea was to have a decent enough space to park the size truck.
Okay.
Free up the road.
And then one other question John brought up was access. Are you using Redbush Lane and you're going to park in there? Sorry? So you would be parking at the business, or
I would be parking in front of the house.
Okay.
Or to the side, because there'll be space between the proposed house and the commercial lot.
Oh, yeah.
Storage, so there would be space there to park, which would keep that. It's a relatively small house, it's about 1,200 square feet. So, but technically you could park between the curb and the house, or Shuswap anyway. So there's some space there.
Okay.
The thing about the snow removal, I'm not sure how that's handled for that. If is our land, so I'm assuming, we have the right to access it. So I don't know how that relates to, storing snow there from. That is a right of way, but that's the only way if we can get onto our.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, typically there would be an access permit that he would apply for, and we would work with him and grant that so we could have access to his property.
Yeah, okay. Kelly, you had a comment?
Yeah, just for clarity, so this is going through a potential rezone from C1 to R1. What would be the setbacks if it was C1? Because I think that the setbacks for residential is actually larger in the front. Like I think our commercial could be almost 0. Right? So if this was a commercial development, they would technically be able to build right up to that property line.
Good point.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to that, the other one where, yeah, the setbacks. So, I mean, there's a little bit of, we could certainly reduce the setback on the rear even more if the snow removal at the front is an issue. I think right behind that, what is behind that? That's just is it a vacant lot right behind that?
The ice cream shop, vacant lot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And okay, perfect. I mean, so if need be, we could go back to a zero lot line on the rear if the issue is at the front. I think there's some way to make this work and to probably work with Public Works to alleviate some of these concerns and still get you the access that you need. I don't want to speak out of turn here and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl, or anybody else, but it looks like there's a potential here to make sure we can satisfy some of the concerns, but still go forward with this development. I mean, I think it'd be great. I mean, that lot's been vacant for years, and anybody who wants to build residential is great. Do you envision it as a home you'd live in or you would rent out?
And it's to live and work basically.
Yeah.
So we sort of in a downsizing phase. And the idea was, yeah, we sort of like the idea of living in the downtown core. Yeah. So yeah, we'd be staying there for one would be and sort of a longer term idea at this point is we would probably want to redevelop the store itself in something.
Right.
A slightly more substantial way, whatever it means, but for now, that's not, you know, we can't hear about that, but that's kind of the thinking for us. It's an awkward little lot in a sense, it's, you know, for a more substantial but it's almost like for us anyway, it seems to be good fit to put a smaller one.
Yeah, oh, I agree.
And yeah, for what it's worth, everything we've done, we have a record of doing it's probably objectively and within the, you know, the constraints of our budget. I think it will absolutely be an attractive little addition to housing stock in seconds. You know, the thing about and I appreciate the thought of taking it further back to the back property line, but the way we envisage it is actually that'll really be our only sort of yard.
Okay.
The area that we can. So that was the thinking with that. I mean, we can absolutely move, we can shrink the house, we can move it around, you know, somewhat. We still have some leeway for that. It's pretty narrow, longish house design. But yeah, the idea was definitely to have that parking and escalated commercial, it would be 0 setback anyway. So as far as the server mill is concerned, storage, I'm not sure. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. I just assumed you would have. But that's something we can figure out, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks, Calvin. No, good comments. Anybody else have any more questions? John?
One more small one. This is more for Nicole possibly. Is it worth going through the zoning changes and OCP changes, or are we better off to go with, we have the multi-use building going in already with the commercial on the bottom, residential on top. How are we zoning that one any different than changing this one? Like, are we creating more paperwork than we need to?
Okay, so I guess from my understanding, they're going to subdivide it, so there is no commercial component. If you didn't subdivide, yeah, we probably could have some wiggle room there, but I think I would assume that separate titles are ideal for the business versus the residents. And so that's kind of why it's a little bit different than if you're talking about 45 Main Street. Yeah, because 45 Main Street is going to entirely C1, but they do have that commercial piece and then housing on top, which is this one doesn't.
Yeah, no, good comments, John. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, since we just have Daryl here, so it's a 3.6 meter setback from the lot line. In your world, with snow removal, how much is workable? Because I see there's some I mean, we have Red Bush Lane, maybe we can push it there. Like what's kind of ideal for you to continue your operations, but with, you know, some impact, but.
Yeah, it's super dependent on where we're looking, right? Where it's
Right.
coming from. Every location is going to be a little bit different. I know it all does come across on this side. Red Bush Lane is another one that has to be opened up. So
Right.
that road needs to be cleared as well. You know, talking 3.5 meter boulevard, that's pretty healthy.
Okay.
10-foot boulevard, that's pretty healthy. We could work with Gavin, I'm sure, to have something that works for access for him. And like he mentioned, there is some infrastructure in place for BC Hydro, so that would have to be accommodated as well. So we could work around it.
Oh, good. It sounds like we're kind of there. And I mean, I'm definitely supportive of the housing there. And I know Gavin you do really nice buildings. So I think it'll be a really nice addition to the area as well.
Sorry for Gavin. There was a time not that long ago where that whole corner was snow storage. We monster.
Yeah.
So we've picked some creative spots to kind of not do that to him, but
well, and you know, the town and the downtown is certainly growing, and we're filling it in as we go, and this will be, I think, an ongoing challenge for how we probably do this in the future. We might have to reimagine some of the stuff, and but I mean, it definitely, I think, would be a nice addition to the area, and housing is always much appreciated. So I think we can just, I support it, and I think both of you, in terms of the access side of it, we could probably figure this out.
work through.
Yeah.
Yeah. For us, it's not about getting a whole winter's worth of snow in one spot. It's just living to fight another day. We
Right.
can come back and move snow later and haul it if we have to. It's slow with not a lot of.
It's just having enough room to get it off the road. Yeah, the initial plow. Yeah, fair enough. Good.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Really appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, you bet.
Nicole?
Yeah, once.
Oh, Deb? There you are. Okay.
Yeah, just a quick comment, kind of following up on what John was saying. So I'm assuming there's reasons to subdivide versus leave it in place. But if there are ways to get creative, because to me, not really knowing much about Gavin's plans, if this is an opportunity to create commercial/residential, however he structures it, I'm very supportive just of the whole idea of finding ways to make things more affordable for our business owners in town too, right? So it's not just about the housing, it's about Sycamoose being a difficult or a challenging place to do business. And if you can roll your accommodation costs and whatever into the same basic location that you've got your business, I'm thinking that's got to be helpful.
Yeah, good comments, Deb. Go ahead, Nicole.
Through the chair. Do you mind, June, if you just go back to maybe the zoning map? Okay, so just maybe a more general question. It kind of ties into a topic that we're discussing later. So in this situation, if we go forward as proposed, the subdivided area that's going to be the home is going to go to residential in the downtown core. And that is something that like the planning committee is feeling comfortable with. It's kind of like a down zoning from C1 to R1.
Okay, now go ahead, Ian.
I think in this instance, I am quite comfortable with it because we've had the proponent that is operating a commercial unit in front. We're dividing this into two, and that's why it's the residential. But we also have someone who's been in the community a long time, and then also indicating that the potential commercial up front could be redeveloped. So I feel like this is one of these instances that that Deb just alluded to, that it's still going to be commercial frontage, but the lot in behind probably not well suited for a full commercial development anyways. But I think this kind of ensures that the frontage remains commercial. And I don't think this will have a big impact on what we want to do strategically with Main Street, but it does add important housing. The other thing, I kind of looked there. So the other side of the street is houses anyways, right? And I know we have that zoned commercial, but if we take a look at the character of that street now and the neighborhood, it is residential. So, you know, we can leave it zoned that way in anticipation that maybe at some point those lots would want to go commercial. But the way I see it now, it's pretty residential. So it's fitting in. It's fitting in. And I think this is just going to help maybe move forward his redevelopment plans for the building on Main Street. So I see it as a net positive, and I don't see it changing the neighborhood from where it is actually currently now. It's probably just going to add to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ian. Deb, you good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John? Okay, Nicole, I'll read all three recommendations, and if anybody has any concerns, we'll discuss them. But I think it's looks good to move forward to council for sure. Thank you, Gavin. Recommended that the Planning Development Committee recommend the District of Sicamous Council give first and second reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw number 1074, 2024. And that the Planning and Development Committee recommend that the District of Sicamous Council give first and second reading to the zoning bylaw zoning amendment bylaw 1075, 2024. And thirdly, that the Planning and Development Committee recommend that the District of Sicamous Council approve development permit number 24-097-DP and development variance permit number 24-097 DVP. And I have a mover. Deb? Oh, seconder, John. Oh, just one moment, Sarah.
Technically, they're all separate resolutions, so they should be read individually and then moved and seconded and voted on.
Okay.
Versus the block.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna ask, I've already read them all. The first one was first and second reading of official community plan. Can I have a mover? John, seconder, Deb. Discussion? Oh, all those in favor? Carried. Okay. Item number 2, it was a recommendation that we give first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1075, 2024. Can I have a mover? Ian. Seconder, John. Discussion? Oh, go ahead, Deb.
Nope.
Oh, you're okay. I let your hand come up. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. And thirdly, District Sicamous Council approved the development permit number 24-097 DVP and development variance permit number 24-097 DVP. Can I have a mover? John, seconder Ian. Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Sarah, for correcting me. Okay, that's great. Moving right along. Emerging trends. I think this is Nicole.
Yeah, through the chair. I thought this would just be worth mentioning, and it does tie into what we just talked about. Because we are getting a lot of requests from homeowners along Shuswap Avenue who are zoned C1 and may not have ever had a commercial operation on the property, and they're looking to do additions, renos, that kind of thing that require building permits. And when we go and do the planning review, it doesn't conform. Right now, they would have legal non-conformance, but once you start doing additions without the commercial component, which should be the principal use, then we're running into trouble. And so I don't know if there's any kind of discussion, or maybe we could put our heads together about what to do with some of these homes along Shuswap Avenue, because like we discussed, ideally the downtown core could be this C1 commercial kind of use, but we definitely don't have that there now. And immediate plans for some of these people aren't to have commercial. It's to continue to live there and enjoy their property as is. And maybe I'll just, we have a specific example, I don't know if it's on the map there, I think it was 1133. You know, they would like to add to their home and not have a commercial component, but as soon as they start adding to their home, they lose that legal non-conformance. So, yeah, we kind of go in a little bit of a circle with some of these properties. I guess they could apply to rezone, like the property we just talked about, if they downzoned from C1 to R1, but maybe that's not ideal. I don't know if there's any other workarounds to help people continue to enjoy their properties.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, knowing the area a little bit, so I think could you go back to the other one yeah, perfect. So, you know, we talk about 1217 and 1209, that's a little trickier because it actually blends into existing commercial buildings right down that part of Shuswap. I would say 1133, I would have no problem with having that rezoned into residential in those 2 lots. I think anything fronting onto Main Street itself would have to remain commercial. I mean, since we're having a bit of a discussion. And then I see possibly an issue with 1217 and 1209 is then 1225 is actually commercial and it's an operating commercial building. So but I think from 1133 down, to me, that's been residential, I think, forever. And same thing with 1120. Yeah, because 1126 and isn't that the Temple Street apartments?
1126 and 1118 are empty.
Are they empty or where's Temple Street? Is that right? Sorry, I'm just trying to get my.
Yeah, they look empty.
Oh, okay. So those lots, yeah. I mean, but chances are anybody that would be building there, I don't think a commercial development down there would be ideal. Considering like if you were building a commercial development and you were trying to run a commercial operation, I don't think those would be your first lots that you're going after as a commercial developer is what I'm trying to say. The other ones, certainly where across from the Legion, it'd be more practical just from, you know, a visibility standpoint and all these other kind of aspects that you would be looking for. But yeah, like 1133, 1125 and 1117 are all pretty, I think, established residential lots and have been for some time. And then, like I said, the vacant lots too. I'm just trying to see, like, where is that? Is the 222 Temple, is that zone currently commercial or no?
MUR1.
MUR1, okay.
It's a big lot. And they've also purchased a couple other lots on Fred Bush Lane, which would probably be 303, would it be?
Yeah. So I think that's gonna be coming to us probably for a rezone as part of that development. So yeah, I mean, right now, we kind of, how I see it is, other than 1137 on that side of Shuswap Ave, probably gonna go mostly residential anyways, or I think that's what people want to do. But 1217 and 1209, I would leave commercial.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one.
And I would leave 1137 commercial too there on the corner.
Yeah.
I know it's an existing house, but it is on Main Street. And ultimately what we do want to do with Main Street is probably have a commercial residential component on that lot. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely non-conforming and it can stay there. But on a planning level, I would say overall, we'd probably want that to be a commercial lot at some point. I don't know.
Nicole or June, do you know if that 1137, it used to be the RCMP station, is it still commercial or was it commercial then?
Through the chair, I don't know what it was in the previous zoning bylaw, but yeah, it's commercial right now.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it's a residential house currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If I could add, I mean, this is helpful for when we have conversations with the owners. I guess though, it kind of sounds like if they did want to do additions to their homes, they should be approaching council for a rezoning to R1.
I think so.
I would think so. Kelly, you got any comment on that? You'd have.
Yeah, I would assume I wouldn't want to blanket change the zoning. I mean, it is in our OCP, right, to develop that. And if there's one-offers that have residential homes, I think if they want to do some additions to it, then I would, because there's really no other way around it, right? To bring them in for a rezone of those. Yeah,
Yeah, through the chair, I guess they probably have to go through a similar process to the property we just talked about.
yeah, and an OCP amendment.
Amendments, some zoning, and then they can be on their way with building permits.
Yeah, okay. Ian?
Could I suggest that there's another potential there? We're gonna be looking at bylaw 1000. And I know we're gonna approach that in a bit of a unique way, but maybe we are having this discussion now and then we can take this feedback into that process, not, you know, later down the road. Unless there's an immediate need for a homeowner to go through an OCP and a rezone, I think some of this could be maybe tidied up with a bylaw 1000 kind of review later on.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so I think reviewing the OCP first.
Right.
And then tying the zoning in, because they need to be speaking to each other, so we're not doing, you know.
Yeah.
Because they just need to, that's the way it works, right? So, yeah. So until we've done the review of the OCP and then modified the zoning accordingly, so they're speaking to each other, I think, I mean, if they're gonna do alterations to a building, unless there's a commercial element, we'd have to go through an OCP amendment / no.
Yeah.
And I think the OCP review and a review of the zoning, it's not gonna be quick.
No.
Right? We wanna make sure we
Yeah.
take a look at this OCP and zoning and actually do our due diligence so everybody feels good about it. So if
Yeah.
somebody's looking to do some renos or an addition in the next 6 months, that would be their only option at this point.
Okay. Good. You comfortable with that, Nicole?
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, you said we're just having, I guess, a discussion just about OCP, how this all affects, like, it is, I think, something for us to look at what, I mean, planning is one of these weird things and OCP is even weirder, about it's kind of like, here's what we want or would like to see happen. Doesn't mean that's actually what happens, right? And this is a perfect kind of example that this has probably been zoned commercial for a long time. The houses are there for a long time and nobody said, well, great, we're zoned commercial, let's put up a commercial building, right? And I think when we look at that, we need to go, okay, well, what's the interface between residential and these commercial spaces? And, you know, we take a look at Main Street, it is filling up, but there is still some vacant lots on that's facing Main Street. I think we just have to be aware of, there's only going to be so much commercial that we're going to get built. And maybe the previous OCP had grander plans than what reality is going to actually pan out to be. And so that's why, you know, we're also trying to encourage housing. So I think it's a little bit of a fine line. I think maybe the OCP's gone too far deep into what would be residential territory anyway, off of Main Street. And then there's other areas that naturally, I think, are going commercial. Like I said, 1217 and 1209. And then possibly the other side of Shuswap behind the Legion and Eagle Valley area. And then whatever ultimately happens on Finlayson Street, like we talked about that too. So it almost seems to me that if there's a natural progression of commercial, it's probably towards the highway side rather than going towards the senior center side. So I know that's just my general observation.
Yeah, good observation. Yeah. No, that's really good. And I kind of, Nicole and I talked before at the beginning of the meeting. I thought, you know, we are gonna be reviewing the OCP and we also in bylaw 1000 again with a few amendments. Thought maybe it'd be a wise idea to get copies out to the planning committee and just everybody penciling your thoughts on them and give them back to June and Nicole and yeah, because we'll, you know, and then we'll get council involved and maybe strike up a committee or I'm not sure if we're going to farm it out or farm some of it out, or I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but that'll be up to council, I guess, when we get there. Okay, so that's good, Nicole. Anything else you see on that verbal report?
No, this is awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Zoning bylaw amendment number 1073, 2024, small scale multi-unit housing. That would be you again, Nicole. Thank you.
You through the chair. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Okay, so our recommendation today is that well, we're looking for some direction on the proposed changes to zoning bylaw 1000 as it relates to small scale multi-unit housing and really specific to the requirements by the province. So I'll walk through some of the background. Okay, so the housing amendment statute, which was formerly Bill 44, requires small scale multi-unit housing, which includes secondary suites and or accessory dwelling units province-wide in single family residential zones, which the District of Sicamous did have at the time this happened, so it means we must comply. And we have to have these updates done by June 30th. We're not the only community. I wouldn't say we're struggling with this, but everyone in BC is aiming to meet this June 30th deadline to accommodate the housing requirements. So there is a pretty useful guide that we included in the staff report or in the agenda, the provincial policy manual and site standards. It talks about what we must do as the District of Sicamous, where we sit. Luckily, we've got a pretty small population, so all the requirements don't apply to us, but some of them do. And so that guide also talks about things that we might want to consider as part of these changes, but we don't have to consider, just good things to think about. And then, so we've used this guide to identify what we might want to do with our zoning bylaw. And I just wanted to mention, maybe it was about 3 weeks ago, I had met with other planning and development managers in Armstrong. So there was Salmon Arm, regional districts, and we just talked about what each of us were proposing to do. I'm just saying we're really lucky that we don't have to do some of the bigger requirements. So this is pulled straight from the that guidelines that I just talked about, and this is specific to Sicamous. So we're required to have a minimum of 1 secondary suite or 1 detached accessory dwelling unit. And there are some other considerations. We can allow only 1 secondary suite or permit only 1 ADU, or we can allow landowners to choose what they want, and then permit the construction of both. So we have some options in front of us. And, you know, I wasn't here for the creation of zoning bylaw 1000, but I understand that with our housing strategy and some of the changes we've already made, we were allowing two dwelling units on properties. We did have some interesting language in there that, you know, although we said you could have 2, there was some restrictions on that, or maybe some errors where it actually like you were only allowed 1. So we're looking to clean that up. And then, so this is just pulled from, I guess, July 2023, last year, the gentle infill, maybe it was the OCP amendment and bylaw was presented to council or the PDC. And at that time it was turned down. It might've been too soon for its time. So we've taken a look at that and considered some of these recommendations in what we're proposing to do for zoning bylaw 1000. And so I'm just going to do a lot of talking now, but we included the summary table that June created. I love it. Thank you for doing that.
Very nice. And
so the top of this chart, and we'll zoom in, but the top of the chart is the existing residential zones. We got A1, CR, R1, 2, and 3, R4 and 5. And then the bottom spreadsheet is what we're proposing. So we'll walk through that now. And I think if you click on it, June, it should open up if it behaves. Oh, just, yeah, it's good to have it. We can actually see what we're talking about. Here we go. And then if we could zoom into the top left. Way more. There you go. Yeah, if you zoom in more. Keep going.
A little more.
Yeah. Keep going. One more. There you go. And then go all the way to the left. There we go. So this again is our existing zones. Right. And so what June has done is put in all the parameters for each of these zones for comparison. And so, well, I hope it's not a surprise, but if you read the staff report, what we're proposing is to combine R1, 2, and 3 into a new general residential zone, because when you take a look at what's existing, they're all pretty similar. And so anywhere that they're different, that's what we'll talk about today and just kind of decide where we might want to go. And when I spoke with the other municipalities and just keeping an eye on what everyone is doing, because some municipalities are ahead of us, they're also proposing to combine a lot of their residential zones just into one, where you're allowed to have all this additional housing. So, okay, so for looking at the principal setbacks for R1, for front setback, we're looking to reduce R1 to 4 meters, like R2 and R3. And we don't want to increase R2 and R3 to 6 meters because we didn't want to create any legal non-conformance if someone is already at the 4 meter setback. So that's why we were proposing to change R1 to 4 meters. And when I say change R1, there won't be an R1, just in the general residential, the front setback across the board would be 4 meters. So for interior side, R1 has 1.5 meter setback, like R2 and R3. And then the R1 has a 0 meter setback where there would be a pony wall shared between units. And so we're proposing that for R2 and R3, the 1.5 meter setback or 0 meter for the pony wall would be appropriate. For exterior side, same as the front setback, R1 is a bit more of a setback than R2 and R3, but we are proposing to go with the 4 meter exterior side. And the exterior side can also act like a front setback where 4 meters is also proposed. So that aligns. For height, all are currently at 10 meters. However, if we allow 3 stories, for example, maybe you had garage on the bottom and then 2 floors to live in, that's taking us to about 9 meters. And so in here, we're proposing 11 meters. Do you mind just scrolling down a bit? I think I just want to confirm. Yeah. Yes, just for a little bit of buffer room. What June was saying is that sometimes your garage is a bit higher than a typical 2 stories. So we wanted a little bit of wiggle room in there. So the 11 meters is being proposed across the board instead of the 10. Okay, so going to accessory, I'm just zooming one more, sorry. Okay, so for front setback, we're looking to reduce R1 to 4 meters, like R2 and R3 again. And we just didn't want to increase it to the 6 in case there was anyone already at that 4 meter setback. And we didn't want to deal with any kind of legal non-conformance on that. And honestly, 4 meters sounds appropriate. For the exterior side, we're proposing to change R2 and R3 to match R1 at 3 meters instead of 4 meters. And then for height, we're proposing to go to 11 again, because we want to accommodate an accessory dwelling on top of a garage and not have to look at any type of variances for that. Like if someone wants to do another home on top, it should be as easy as possible for them and not have to go through a variance. Yeah.
So 11 meters, that would be able to get you essentially a 3-story home. Is that correct? Just so
yeah, June, you can correct me, but sounds like 3 meters is roughly the height for 1 story.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the habitable dwellings or residence.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah, we do have, we have a little bit of a trend happening in Sycamoose where a lot of people have bigger boats or bigger RVs.
Yeah.
And they want to put a larger garage and it gets them up there.
And yeah, and I think that's great too for the floodplain, obviously. Yeah, if your living space is where your garage is, there's not a lot of risk then living in it. Okay, so that was for height for accessory. Now we're looking at the maximum parcel coverage. No changes proposed, but I mean, in that guide, we can consider a higher percentage, like if we go to 50, or we could just keep it as 40 because that's what we have now. So, open for discussion on that point. We took a look at Salmon Arms bylaw and because they were a step ahead of us and they are also at 40%. So we're not too far off from what other communities are doing. Minimum parcel area is the next one. So we have R1 is at 450 meters squared, and which is 0.045 hectares or 0.11 acres, depending on what you like to measure things by. So R2 and R3, they're at 370 meters squared, or the 0.037 hectares, 0.09 acres. And just for reference, a typical tree street lot is 0.09 hectares. I don't know if I have that right. Just for a visual. So we're proposing to take all to the 370 meter squared number. Open for discussion if you like. I'll just keep going. So minimum parcel frontage is next. R1 is at 14.5 meters and R2 and R3 is at 12.5 meters. We're proposing to go to the 12.5 for all. That seems like more than enough for frontage to get it in and out of these lots safely. Okay, short-term rentals was interesting in all three of these zones. In R1 and R3, we allow B&Bs, but not short-term rentals, which we know. And then in R3, we don't allow short-term rentals or B&Bs. So in the R3 zone, we should probably look at maybe allowing B&Bs for all, but not short-term rentals for all. And I'm sorry, what is R3 again? It's our residential at the 1 and 2.
Are you referring to the main?
Okay, it's mobile home residential. So yeah, right?
No, that's R4.
What's that?
R4 is mobile home.
R4?
R4 is mobile home as well, but R3 is.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, R4 is hillside, like in Bayview, and then R3 is mobile home residential.
Okay, sorry. That's changed.
That's okay. So that's interesting. Yeah, I guess what we could do is have some type of language around mobile home parks that says you're not allowed to have a short-term rental. It seems like an interesting place for a short-term rental. So we can have some further discussion or thoughts on that.
Definitely say it happens.
Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, we've already talked about those. So that would impact R2, or I meant R3. And R2 is the, I guess this would impact R2, which, as they currently do not permit B&Bs. And R2 is only in the Parksville strata, so Jaltia there. And so we can have a discussion about what that looks like too. We can permit, and then the strata can decide not to allow them in their bylaws, which we know how that sometimes goes. So we might want to put some thought into that one.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to chat about now, or I can keep going.
Do we maybe just chat about some of these things, because I'll probably forget.
Well,
my memory is not.
Are we done this? Maybe are we done this spreadsheet? If you go to the right, I just have there's only one more talking point, and it's not a big one, but just mentioning that, of course, in the red font there, we had animal shelters still with their existing setbacks at 60 meters. And then the building, it's interesting in the R1, is that R4, they have provision for building separation on the lot of 3 meters. That's the only zone that talks about separation between buildings in the lot, which is something we'll discuss a little bit later, because we might also want that in the new zone, is talking about how far the accessory dwelling unit can be from the primary. But okay, that was it.
Nicole, that animal shelter setback 60 meters. I kind of remember we had some issues. I think it was on McPherson Street where, you know, it's ALR, but it's residential. And it's the farm, like the farm, the 60 meters would be for the farm, that they have to have a 60 meter setback. Is that what it is? 60 meters? Animal shelter?
What it is now?
But the residential lots on McPherson aren't even that big, and they were required to have some kind of setback as well to a VLR property. So I didn't know. And I remember us having a whole bunch of problems years ago.
Okay, I'm not aware of those problems. And so just to confirm, this zone is country residential.
Yep.
And this would mean if you're in the country residential zone, if you wanted an animal shelter, that building would have to be 60 meters from the property line. And I'm thinking it's probably for sound purposes, and then any kind of disturbances to neighbors around you. So it's not, yeah, if you wanted to build your house, you would have to be 60 meters away. But if you wanted to propose your animal shelter on a country residential lot, you would have to be 60 meters away.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes, 200 feet.
Well, yeah, but I guess 200 feet away from 30 dogs, I don't know, right? It seems kind of, I mean, this would be an actual commercial animal shelter we're talking about, or
Well, it's
in
meant to be residential though.
right.
Commercial lot, it's not a commercial operation, it's residential still.
But wouldn't the animal shelter be a commercial operation?
Maybe industrial?
Right.
You want to, definition of an animal shelter, like, I mean, is that like commercially or residential? That's it.
I guess what type of animals too? Could be chickens. I don't know.
I guess, and it's a fair question. And if I'm being honest, we didn't look into the animal shelter setback because it didn't have to do with the housing changes. It was something that's existing and just that we would be mindful of.
Yeah.
But you're thinking, it sounds like when we look at more revisions to 1,000, we should take a look at this. The animal shelter setback.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, when you look at Finlayson, I mean, Finlayson's country residential, right? And it's in the downtown core. You couldn't put anything on that because,
Right.
the lots are only like a couple 100 feet wide anyways. And they're
Right.
400 or 500 or maybe 1,000 deep.
Yeah. And I guess another good point would be if you take a look at the dairy, the current dairy. There's certainly, I mean, what is an animal shelter? Okay.
Got the definition.
All right.
Okay.
In case you want it, it's a really short one.
Sure.
Animal shelter means a facility providing temporary care to household animals awaiting placement and specifically excludes breeding.
Oh, okay, so farm animals and household animals, so.
Awaiting place, it's actually an actual animal shelter, technically, if they're awaiting.
Right. It's not like a pet hotel.
Yeah.
Awaiting placement.
Waiting placement, so it's actually like a full-on animal shelter where they're moving, they're not staying.
Right.
Okay, good to know.
Very well, geez, learn something new every day, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay.
I actually have a couple of questions. So I remember this coming up, and I'm not sure if you were with us at the time, Nicole, but I remember asking this question to a previous planner about the parcel coverage, because we had a few variances on the parcel coverage, and I'm like, why would we keep it at 40% when I think we've had several that come up closer to 50? Why wouldn't we just increase it? Because, as we put more units on these lots, the parcel coverage will naturally go up just out of, necessity. So, I would look at that. Like, I know 40% might be, but I think we've had stuff that went past the 40% getting into 50. And I don't think that's unreasonable if we're putting 3 units now on a lot that was designed to be 1 at one point. So I don't know if you have comments on that, but that was one of my kind of things. And then the other one, and I think I heard you say this, and again, correct me if I misheard this, is that we allow B&Bs in all the residential zones, and B&B is classified as the owner being present, renting out, I guess, rooms, but it's not a short-term rental. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So if it's a single family residence and you're living in the residence and then renting out rooms, that's considered a bed and breakfast. And you do have to live on the residence, or if you have an employee who lives on the residence running the B&B for you.
And that would require a commercial business license as well.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know about commercial business,
Oh, right.
license, but yeah, just a regular business license. And we've been throwing them under short-term rental.
Okay.
So they're, yeah, it's $265 and you have to register for the MRDT and go through that process.
Okay, oh, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, and just for some clarity on this piece, because it is a little confusing in terms of short-term rentals and bed and breakfast and the definitions within our zoning bylaw. So I think it's everybody's understanding that a short-term rental is allowed, let's say in an R1, a residential zone, as long as it's a secondary suite, right? So it's
Owner's present there.
correct. So there's that. So I've got a basement suite, I'm gonna rent it out, I live on the top, or I have a coach house, I'm gonna rent that out, or whatever. So that's one thing. And then there's the actual bed and breakfast where it's more of a, you're providing breakfast along with the bed. And so our zoning bylaw right now kind of defines bed and breakfast and short-term rentals the same. Am I correct on that? Like similarly, so we're kind of classifying in a residential area, a bed and breakfast the same as a short-term rental, even though talking to a person, any regular person, you would in our heads define them differently. A bed and breakfast and a short-term rental accommodation are different. But our zoning bylaw classifies them as the same. Just so everybody understands, bed and breakfast is actually the same as a short-term rental as it relates to our zoning bylaw.
Okay.
Just for clarity on that. Am I correct?
Yes.
And that's how we've been treating them. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, I know it is. It's our zoning bylaw, the wording in it is a little, yeah.
So that'll be
modifying.
an item that we might want to tweak a bit.
Correct.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, through the chair. I guess June just pulled up. So this is, I don't know if this is.
General residential.
Can you zoom out a bit? But we have it listed as currently, if they allow a B&B or a short-term rental. So in that one column there.
And you're proposing that it all be yes?
Okay, so right now we've got R1 and R3, B&B, yes, short-term rental, no. Oh, yeah, go for it.
But isn't a short-term rental the same as a bed and breakfast?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
But there, I mean, short-term rental is specifically listed in the zone. And bed and breakfast is specifically listed in the zone, but in some, but not others, even though they are the same.
See, this is where it's a little.
Yes. It is
Tricky.
yes, tricky.
Hard to understand. Sorry, Deb, did you have something? No. Oh no.
I didn't, but I could. I guess when we're talking about amalgamating the R1, R2, R3 into, you know, a single zone, I don't philosophically have an issue with it, but with some of the specific details around what is allowed in those zones, with the R3, you're going to run into a lot of conflicts with the mobile home park rules.
Around short-term rentals, you mean, and B&Bs?
Around anything, you know, like that, you know, what's allowed, because they have specific rules and, you know, in terms of business, in terms of, you know, has to be owner occupied. They're all, you know, can be different, but it's typical for them to have very specific rules for the owners within that park, so.
Through the chair. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm just taking a quick look for mobile homes and the rest of the parameters, more around setbacks. It looks like they're going to remain mainly the same. Building height would increase. And then they might, what is that column with the 4 meters? Exterior side would change to the 3 meters. So those are the other changes that we might have to consider with the mobile home. And then of course, I would think the bigger is, yeah, short-term rentals / B&B and what we decide to do there.
Yeah, really good point, Deb, that, like if you take a look at the height, you know, you have 11-meter mobile home, that would be like, the mobile home on steroids.
Put it up this way. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, good point, Deb. Really good point. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's super, super good for us to know. Okay, so if there's no more questions on that, I'm not done. So we just covered R1, R2 in the top half there, June.
Yeah.
And so now I just want to talk about A1 and CR. Yeah. Okay, so for principal and accessory setbacks, they mostly remain the same, but height is proposed to go from 10 meters in A1 to 11 meters for principal and 8 meters to 11 meters for accessory. And country residential will stay at 13 meters. For some reason, it's already at 13 meters, maybe some taller storage buildings. Then, because R1 to R3, now I'm changing topics here, sorry. So because R1 to R3 is proposed to be combined into a general residential zone, we propose to rename R4 Hillside 1 unit residential and R5 Resort Residential Old Town to just residential Hillside and residential resort because we wouldn't have numbers anymore. So that's a name change there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, going through a couple other things. So with these changes in the general regulation, our general regs that apply to all zones, we're proposing to add some language in the massing section to say that massing applies to commercial, industrial buildings and not to the residential zones, because we would hate to review that shadow casting for a 3-story house. So we're proposing some language in the general regs for that. And then we also want to have a minimum building separation, maybe, between the primary and the accessory, like we just talked about. So the principal home and then how far the accessory dwelling unit should be from each other, or not. We don't have to have that. We currently don't have that. So something that we can think about. And then I'm just going to suggest that we table that for now, just because we don't have it now, and we do have some tight deadlines. We're not too worried about the deadlines, but if we can't come to a consensus of what we want to do with separation between buildings on the lot, it is something that we can figure out afterwards, unless we have some strong opinions on it now. And then of course we looked at Salmon Arm, and they have language around the 3-meter setback between principal buildings and accessory buildings.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
No, did you say we don't have any language about that now?
Just in the one zone, right, June, we had language, and that was the R4. We had a building separation requirement of 3 meters in R4, but not in the other ones.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, June, you were mentioning that we can have language in the bylaw to state that the setback may not be varied by the DBP process if we want to stick to our guns. So that's an interesting option too. Okay, almost done here. So we have some site-specific regulations in the R1 to R3, where we've amended maybe density, lot size, things like that. And we're not able to consolidate them into the combined zone. So we took a look at what other communities were doing, and they have an additional, I guess, a schedule that just lists in the residential zones the site-specific amendments. So none of the site-specific amendments that are existing in R1 to R3 could be combined into what we're proposing, just because there aren't that many changes. And so what we would propose to do is having this additional schedule that lists what the site-specific amendments would be for each property.
Okay.
So dealing with that. Okay, almost done, almost done. Okay, so in the second attachment, the kind of just a small snippet of song that I talked about today. And maybe just zoom into the agricultural and the country residential so we can take a peek. Yeah. Okay. So we have the existing zones with yellow highlighted text, and that text is what we're adding, and crossed out text as what is being removed. And then all other text remains as is in this snip here. So we're proposing to combine the R1 to R3. However, there are other residential zones that won't be combined into one zone, and we still need to review and ensure that they comply with the housing regs. So for example, if you maybe scroll down and to the left a bit. Yeah, so that we were talking about R4, the hillside up in Bayview. We still need to make sure we're not combining them with anything. They're gonna remain the same, but they do need to allow these housing requirements. So if you go back to A1 and CR, so adding primary dwelling unit, which will include mobile home, single unit dwelling, 2-unit dwelling. So you'll still have all those uses that we've crossed out, but we're combining it into one defined definition. And then for accessory uses, adding single detached accessory dwelling unit and secondary suite. And that will replace garden suite, coach house. So you can still have those types of housing, but they're just going to be defined as one. And then in the R4 hillside, it's proposed to become the residential hillside, removing single unit dwelling and adding primary dwelling unit, which includes, again, mobile home, single unit dwelling, 2-unit dwelling, adding secondary suite. And then for the R5, resort residential, proposed to become residential resort, no numbering. So removing single unit dwelling, 2-unit dwelling, and sleeping unit, and just adding primary dwelling unit, which includes mobile home, single unit dwelling, and 2-unit dwelling. And then adding multi-unit dwelling. For accessory uses, adding secondary suite and single detached accessory dwelling, which includes those coach houses and garden suites. And then that's, you know, having said all of this, that's if those lots are even big enough to house that. We're supposed to be able to allow people to do it, but, you know, depending on their existing lot, they may not be able to. That's important to note. So just because we're saying that you can have all these things doesn't mean you actually can when you look at the logistics. But what we're being told from the province is obviously to try and make it as easy as possible to at least in Sickmoose have 2. Okay, so just a little recap. So we're required to make these changes by June 30th, and we're gonna strive to meet that. And we've gone with pretty much bare minimum for now. There's obviously a ton of different changes we could do. Like we're only required to do the 2 units in Sickmoose, but we could allow 4 or 6. We just haven't proposed that because that's a lot of work. We can do that in a future revision, but right now we're proposing the bare minimum, if we're being honest. And then after we make the initial changes, we're probably going to have to make some more changes similar to when zoning bylaw 1000 is adopted. We just did a little cleanup bylaw for that. And so we'll continue to do that with 1000. And then after, I think I have a slide for this in the PowerPoint, but after we go through this process and decide what we want it to look like, we have to obviously review corresponding bylaws to ensure they comply with our changes. I'm not too concerned about that, but it's definitely something we need to do. And then we are also required to ensure the OCP has specific housing components in place by the end of 2025. So that's why I said we're required to look at our OCP, and it's more for the housing, but if we're already looking at it, we should definitely include the housing component because that's due by end of 2025. And then just for ease, we've provided, the bare minimum recommendations. And just like I said, we could take it further if we want, but it's going to take a lot of, I guess, work and review to make sure we get it right. And with this, because we're changing the whole bylaw, we'll need to get MOTI approval sometime in between 3rd and adoption. And that is all I have for now. That's a lot.
And June, good, really good work.
Yeah, sorry, I was writing down a few notes of it. So R5. What do we currently have zoned as R5? That's out in Old Town?
Yeah, just the resort residential at Old Town. Yeah.
Is that the piece? I can't even remember where it is. Is that the piece that is right beside the current marina?
Lot 1 and lot 2.
Yeah.
Or
well,
lot 1, I think.
So I guess my question on that is like that's already supposed to be small lot development, right? Like how can we put multi-unit on what's already, I think R5 is designed to be small lot developments. And, you know, even if it's small lot developments, because I just don't, okay, so I just don't see how that seems practical, how to allow multi-units even on a tiny lot that's supposed to only be kind of high density anyways, or possibility of high density. So that one was just a question mark in my mind.
Through the chair. I guess when I think about it, maybe it's not obviously having maybe an accessory dwelling unit, but at least having a suite inside of that home. I don't know if that's a possibility.
So like
if someone wanted to do it.
So, okay, but all right, my understanding was that these aren't actual homes. They're supposed to be more like density, like townhouses or multi-unit buildings already, but am I wrong on that?
Kind of duplexes, aren't they, Kelly?
Yeah,
So this resort residential is very similar to like a smaller, I think I wanna say, it's a smaller lot subdivision. But the big difference on this one was that you're allowed to, that's why it's called resort residential, is you could short-term rental out a unit, or you could live in a unit. So it gave the flexibility. That's why there was a custom zone over there. It gave the flexibility. If somebody wanted to buy a single detached home or a part of a townhouse or whatever it is that is going to be over there, they could rent it out, short-term rental it out, or they could choose to live there. And none of our other residential zones allow that flexibility.
right.
So that was kind of the reason why this one was, and it is a bit of a custom zone to that specific subdivision plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, and is the idea to kind of go with a little bit of a Whistler model there, where you would have these things kind of in a rental pool? Is that what, like, I'm just trying to get a grip on why we have that R5.
Well, that was what they requested. Did they know?
Is it,
Yeah.
In the phase development agreement, in terms of what the zoning, yeah, we went through a rezone of that to, it was per their request in terms of what was proposed for that specific site.
we don't have any, there hasn't been any plans put forward on that one yet, no.
And they,
Have a development permit.
it wasn't looking like they were gonna have like a check-in center or anything like that. It was individual units sold.
Okay.
Homes sold or type of duplexes sold, and they could short-term rental them themselves. And they would be advertised as a short-term rental or an outright purchase as well.
So I guess I mean, follow up on that, that's gonna be a popular zone for some people, right? I guess all our other zones don't allow that sort of flexibility. And is that the only place we have R5? It's the only place we have R5, okay.
Yeah, it's almost site specific.
It is site specific then, yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, moving forward. Deb, no, yes or no, your hand up. That's not your hand. Keep thinking I see your hand up there. Okay, anything else, Nicole?
Through the chair, no, nothing else from me. I'm thinking though, like people probably want to digest this a bit.
Yeah.
And we do have some time between June 30th. So I do think it would be worth maybe bringing it to committee of the whole to talk about further. It's a lot of information all at once. So maybe we could provide some type of package ahead of time so that people can think about it. And hopefully you can share amongst yourselves. These are some pretty ambitious timelines, but like I said, we do have some time, and quite honestly, it sounds like we're not too worried about the June 30th deadline. It's just we would love to do that so that we can move on to working on other things instead of dragging this out. Yeah.
No, that's good. I think it should come to the committee of the whole meeting and we get it going, because that's pretty tight timeline.
Very tight.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just so you have to advertise by May 23rd, but we don't need to do a public hearing?
Through the chair, no, prohibited from having the public hearing for this.
And I support your approach to just don't spend a ton of time on this right now and try to just get the requirements approved, because it's very tight. What is it, 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And MOTI, you gotta get their approval.
Yeah, so I mean, this is our ambitious timeline, but sometime in between third and adoption, we'll need to get their approval. But when I spoke with them, they're obviously very on board with these housing changes because it's a provincial requirement and they're the province. So as long as we're not doing a full rezone of a bunch of properties to different zones and having to look at traffic impact studies and things like that, it should be an easy approval.
Okay. And this was for information only, but do you need a recommendation to move forward, or you guys are just good to go ahead?
Well, through the chair, we don't have obviously a red line bylaw or anything prepared, and there is no draft. Well, maybe no, we don't have a draft bylaw prepared. So I wouldn't have anything to provide a recommendation on. Just that we would love to take this to committee of the whole next and have a chat about it.
Okay. Deb, you're good with that? Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to come back just to the parcel size. Maybe you can go back and take a look at how many times you're hitting that 40%. I'm positive, but I think we've done a few variances on it. It might just be better to go to 50 in your next draft. It'll just give you the flexibility of not having to come to council, right? Yeah, like 50% parcel coverage. I mean, if you go over 40, you're supposed to get a variance. So it just might make a lot of sense to bump to 50, and then you won't have to come to council for variances.
Yeah, through the chair, that would be amazing, not to take, small variances to council each time, if that's the case that we're seeing every time and we're comfortable with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Great work.
Well, and I do have to thank June, because without June, I would have never been able to look at this. Because you guys know we have a ton of other developments happening, and this is kind of something, a little annoyance on the side that we have to complete. It's important. We should allow people to have accessory dwelling units and secondary units. Just a huge thanks to June. He put together the spreadsheet and did the comparison and made the recommendations. So huge thank you.
Great, thank you, June, for getting that all put together for us. Yeah, good information, and yeah, I think you got everybody's support to carry this forward to committee of the whole. Yeah, I'll go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so is this going to come to the next committee of the whole? Is that what you're thinking, the May 22nd one? Or
I mean, we could. I know we're going to publish the agenda quite soon, as if we're able to do a copy and paste of today into next week, and we're comfortable with that for the agenda, then I'm okay with that.
And just in terms of timelines, like in my opinion, if we get first, second, and third reading done before the end of June and adopted in July, I don't think the province is going to really do much about it. We're making an effort. So I know, ideally it's due at the end of June, but I think if we're making an effort, that's sufficient.
Okay. Good. Everything good, Nicole? You move forward?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Number 5, development service update. You're next again.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. We usually do this quick update. So a lot of the files we've talked about today, which is great, so I don't have to talk about them again. And just starting from the top, working our way down. I don't know if I have any updates for any of the files that require site contamination clearance or riparian assessments. Maybe there's been a little bit of movement and some different plans happening, but as far as I know, none of those files are ready to come for a recommendation. Now I just want to talk about, maybe 24-023 DP. So that's the redesign of Sycamore houseboats. I did hear back from them. They are going to amend their application to only include the realignment of the buildings and not the rezoning of the land that they don't own yet, or the land where they wanted the campground. So that will be coming. Then we already talked about that at the planning committee about maybe we should do that until we have the other stuff set in stone. And then for 326 Merrill Lake Lanes, 24-032 Z. So that's pending Strata Council resolution. And I think you guys know, we had a conversation about that at the committee of the whole. And so that was the motion for that file, and the applicant is aware of that. And for 410 Cottonwood Avenue, just as a reminder, they had applied to rezone R1 to something that would allow them to have a short-term rental, and they've decided to pull their application just based on the conversation or the decision on one of the properties on Elliott, who tried to do the same thing. And for 425 Main Street, so a little bit of an update. We have a number of files under 425. So for the zoning, we're looking at adoption next week. That would be amazing. And then next week, we're also looking to do the development permit for the development in general. And then because we're still working out some, like what some of those variances look like with the walkway, the entrance, building location, massing, that kind of thing, we're looking to take the DVP for 425 Main Street to the June 12th meeting. So that's for 425 Main Street. And then we just talked about 1455 Silver Suns Road, 329 Main Street we just talked about today. 222 Temple. So 222 Temple and 303 and 307 Fred Bush Lane, that's the same development. So for 303 and 307 Fred Bush Lane, they need to go through an OCP and zoning amendment, kind of similar to 329 Main Street. And so we're proposing to do that next week, 1st and 2nd. And then that kind of allows us to get into the development permit for the entire development, that 74 units. So next week, rezoning and OCP, 1st and 2nd, and then we'll shortly after that get the ball rolling for the development permit for the whole thing and any kind of variances mid-June, end of June. I think I've covered them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, just on the 222 Temple, so that 1st and 2nd is coming to this council meeting upcoming.
Yeah.
And then that'll give you enough time to do the DP for the June 12th, because I think his timeline was quite tight, but you're able to kind of meet what.
Yeah, through the chair. I think we're going to try and do it similar to 425 Main Street, where we'll, if they're so dependent on the development permit for funding or whatever else, then we're going to move the development permit forward and then think about the variances after.
Okay.
So that's the plan so far.
Oh, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. Okay, no, that sounds good. Okay, and then, I just wanted to, any news on 113 Wet Up Street? I understand that Kevin couldn't get a contaminated site release from Norm, so he's kind of moved on. And I know Norm is still struggling with a clean site. So I didn't think that was going to happen anymore from what I can.
Yeah, through the chair. So yeah, I've heard some rumblings of maybe rescinding that application altogether and starting fresh. And fresh meaning unhooking or subdividing the lots because it is hooked across Riverside, and then developing the lot to the east, some type of housing. And then we've heard some other type of developments proposed for the west side of Riverside and some other properties north of it as one bigger development. Is mostly right now talk and no applications, but yeah, I think as far as I know, the micro suites, that's the one we're talking about, is off the table.
Okay, that's good. Well, great. Thanks for the update. Everybody's good with that? All right, moving on to, we got public input. Anybody online, or we, I know the council chambers is packed full. Todd, you got anything you want to bring forward, or?
Maybe after, just talking to you again. You guys got time?
Yep. Okay, no, pretty good. All right, well, thanks everybody for coming. We'll, looks like we'll adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. Ian, John, those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Good work, guys.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah. Well, and definitely, yeah, think about it.